Okay, here's my mule motor. Basically, it's just a stock motor that I'm putting in the race car chassis just to test and feel things out. It's a stock Z31 VG30. Some of the things I've done to the stock engine so far is I've taken the alternator, and it's usually over on this side of the engine. I moved it over here to this side of the engine, and basically I just took the stock alternator bracket and turned it over, chopped it off a little bit of excess metal, and bolted right on. And I had to make my own lower tension mount here to tension the belt and get a different belt. The mass air sensor stuck on the throttle body, that's just there for testing purposes. It gets moved farther downstream. You can see the modified Z31 headers I have on this side. They wrap around the top of the bell housing, across the back of the engine, and meet in with the other side, which isn't installed right now. You can see down below there, I've got a wet sump pan that I've modified to a shorter sump, but longer, and it has road race oil baffle traps inside. You see the hole right there. That's the hose. It comes out, goes through the clutch master cylinder, and that goes inside the transmission there to the annular throwout bearing. This hose hanging right at the top here comes out the top of the bell housing. That is the bleed for the annular throwout bearing. Here's a T10 tranny out of like a 63 Corvette. Hurst competition shifter. All nice rods with rod ends to adjust the lengths and stuff. All straight shot. Gives you nice positive shifts. Pretty much stock on this side. So the plan here is to put a new timing belt on and tensioner on, and dress up a few other things that need to be done before putting the engine in the chassis. Okay, we're going to do a new cam belt and tensioner and do a couple modifications to the front of the engine here. So the first thing I've done is I put her up on top dead center. Got a yellow mark here for top dead center. And the cams, I put a little white mark on the little indent in the tin here that marks where the cam timing is supposed to be. And I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little dot or dimple in the cam gear that you line up with that on each side. And then I've also confirmed that I'm close to number one here by taking the distributor cap off and checking the alignment of the rotor. And I made a mark on the distributor housing where the rotor was pointing as well, in case things get bumped around. So we'll start taking apart the front end now. Okay, here's our tensioner for the belt. There's a spring behind it. Another washer. Pop our belt off. Got a few miles on her. So, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a dot on the lower cam gear right down here, and there's a slot right here in the lower case that roughly need to line up at top dead center. And mine's a tiny bit off, probably because of the belt stretch and so on. So I will attempt to move it a little bit and line it up perfectly. And that looks good right there. I want to get rid of some of this tin up here. To do that, I'm going to have to do some cutting. And I think I can get in there with snips and do it with it right on the car, or on the engine, I mean. But there's a bunch of extra stuff hanging around here that I could get rid of that I don't need. So I may pop the cam gears off and take this tin off and cut it with snips. You probably noticed that the gear moved. That's okay. I'll put it back before I put the belt back on. That one come right off. That one. There we go. Some tin snips here. Let's do some sniffing. So I need these 2 bolts here. And that's what indexes it on the head, so I can't cut those out. Okay, I got these plates cleaned up a little bit. I took them to the belt sander and knocked off any sharp edges around the outside edges. Clean it up a little bit. Take a wire brush here, clean up the faces of these cam gears a little bit. Okay, so I still have my timing marks now, but I don't have that sheet metal hanging all over the place, getting in the way of servicing things. You can get away with that on a race car, street car, yeah. Okay, so this one moved, as you probably saw. We'll just curve back if I can. Checking all my marks, looking pretty good. Normally if this was your street car, you'd be changing the thermostat, probably the water pump. Checking all the gaskets, cleaning things up a little better. Again, this is just my mule motor. Not too worried about all that stuff.